Welcome back to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series. Today we have Leilani Jones Wilmore joining us. Hi, Leilani.
Hi, Roy.
Hey, thanks for joining us. We'd love to start by asking you about you. This is your show, and one of the things that I'd love to know is maybe some of your experience that led up to your audio description narration.
I would say, my experience is I worked as a theater actor in New York and all over the country for many years, then moved out to California. And when I got out here, I got married and started a family. So what I could keep going was the voiceover part of my work because I had little kids. And when I started doing audio description, my voiceover agent, which was the only agent that I kept because I knew I could do voiceover while I was raising the kids, I sort of bumped into this work. My voiceover agent sent her reel over to an audio description company, WGBH, and they picked my voice off of the reel. And so there was a bit of a learning curve. I just sort of showed up, didn't know what it was. I hadn't heard of it before. And now you jump ahead and it's 15 years later, and I've been doing it for 15 years.
Have there been a lot of changes in your delivery of the narration in 15 years, or has it slowly evolved or kind of stayed the same?
I think maybe a cross between slowly evolved and staying the same, in the sense that if I were to go back and listen to earlier audio description, I don't notice a big difference between then and today. When I started doing it, I was like, this is fabulous. I love this. The feeling of audio description being a storytelling mode. And, there I was at home with little kids. I mean, storytelling was my life. So I was like, this is a great job. It's the kind of job that there are so many times when I was raising the kids where I would do a lot of things in the community, like at school, and just doing it for community service. Well, this is a job that's community service, and yet you get paid for it. That's extraordinary. So that's one of the things I love the most about it.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any experiences that you've had maybe with an audience member?
There are two. The first one is one that happened many years ago. I had described Toy Story 3, and that was the very first time that I had gotten any kind of feedback from an audience member, a listener. And what happened is the audience member sent an email to Pixar. Pixar forwarded it to WGBH. WGBH forwarded it to me. So basically what it said was it was a young mom with two kids. She had a baby and a toddler, or maybe a preschooler. Excuse me. And they were watching Toy Story 3, and she clicked on the descriptive narration, not really knowing what it was. And when the descriptive narration started to play, she realized that her baby, who was sight impaired, would be able to watch movies with the rest of the family. And she didn't know that that service was out there. And she was moved to write the email and to thank them and to describe just how important that descriptive narration was to her family. And it just so happens I was the narrator, and that's how it got forwarded to me. And when I received it, I was like, wow, the first time from being in the booth to getting something back from somebody who's on the other end, listening to it. So that was really moving for me. And then the second time, because Roy, you hooked me up with a listener in Georgia, and we had and I spoke to him, and we had a great conversation. And that's a part of this that I never knew would be out there or accessible, that you could actually connect with the people on the other end, that there was a way to do that. So I thank you for that, Roy.
I'm glad that you were able to connect with him. And that first story with the it's really moving to hear that this family was able to experience a movie together at the same time. That I know we're in the entertainment industry, and that sometimes doesn't seem to be quote unquote considered a necessity, but that kind of connection that they were able to share together is one of the. It sounds like that's a really important part to you too, and being able to hear that has being able to hear those kinds of stories changed you at all as far as your either delivery of audio description narration, or it's got to be, like you said, it's moving, it's got to be rewarding to you. I'm not even sure what I'm asking here.
Yeah, it's very moving. It's very rewarding. It's not like after I got that comment, I went and changed how I was doing the audio description, because, we're professionals. We come in and we do the work to the best of our ability. And it's been like that since day one. That's what I think I mean by, I don't know if the description has changed very dramatically from when I first started, because I always had this connection to this kind of work, in the sense that when I'm describing, I'm feeling it. If something upsetting is happening on screen, you feel upset. If something happy is happening on screen, you feel happy. That's part of the toolkit of actors, is that we're able to access those feelings. What's different about this work is that those feelings go into your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's always been there. That's what I loved about it. Is that sense of acting through your voice. I think that's really fun.
There's been some assumptions that a narrator is just reading words on the page. And for you to say that you're an actor and that you're feeling those feelings, whether it's upset or happy, that when you deliver your craft to the best of your ability, it is bringing in a performance. Can you talk a little bit more about that, either when you're in the booth or when you're preparing, or both?
It feels like, and I'll try to break it down for people that are not actors, but when you're doing a scene, say in a scene study class, a TV show, or even on a movie, and you go into it and you try to bring you access yourself and all of your life experience and your feelings, like what makes you smile, what makes you laugh is different from somebody else. All of that comes into a description. I have regular jobs that I do every week where I describe either certain TV shows, and I can tell that from one TV show to another, the way I'm describing is completely different. Maybe one is more of a cop show, and it's got a very, not cut and dried, but urgent. There's an urgency to that description because something is always going on. Or a comedy like a sitcom, where there's a smile behind your voice when you're describing it, because it's often sitcoms have to do with families and family dramas. And I bring all of my experience, family experience into that as well. In fact, when it's a funny project, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you're describing it and then you start laughing and then you got to do it again because it was funny, That's happened to me before. And I'm like, oh, sorry guys, let's just do that again.
Sure. Oh, that's a great point. So when you do take it again because you're laughing, a lot of people wonder about that. Let me see how to ask this question. So as you're narrating these things, let's say you do laugh. For you to take it again, why wouldn't you just keep the laugh as a narrator?
Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And the thing to remember for myself is that we're here to serve the project, right? We want to make the experience of the project better. We don't want it to be about us. We want it to be about the project. If there's a little sort of chuckle in my voice as I describe something and it's serving the project, that works. If I just burst out laughing because Leilani thought that was funny, that could take somebody out of the story, and that doesn't serve the project. So it's all about that. Sometimes you do. Sometimes there's a little bit of a chuckle in there, and they want to keep it because it serves the project. So I think that's the distinction.
Gotcha. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. When it comes to you, going back to what you said earlier, the best of your ability, you've really addressed a lot of the acting and the performance side. Is there a technical aspect to audio description you could share?
Yes, definitely. That learning curve of speaking to time code, you just have to learn how to do it. how to keep, because you're working with a script in front of you on a music stand. You also have the time code on the screen. And the time code in the script, theoretically, almost all of the time are exactly correlated. And sometimes you're following along with the script and you don't look up quickly enough and you miss the exact second that you were supposed to start speaking. Or your fingers on the script, you're following the code on the screen, and with like 1 or 2 seconds to spare, you drop down so that you can come to pick up the line and so that you can come in exactly. So that's the technical part of it, is that everything is timed just so that you're not talking over anything that's important for the listener. Most of the time we don't talk over dialogue. Most of the time we don't talk over important sound effects. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to talk over like a party scene and there's a general wash and the script will actually say, you know all of this, Roy, I'm just saying this for our listeners, but it'll say talk over on the script so that you're not going to wait for a silent moment. You're just going to follow the time code, come in, no matter what the audio is doing. This has to be described here, no matter what the audio is doing, or else the listener won't be able to follow. So those are some of the technical pieces of it that after you've done it for a few years, you don't think about that so much. You just sort of do it. And one of the things I do when I get the script, which is right before you record, a lot of people may think, oh, you have the script the day before and you study it. And no. Then second before you're recording, that's when you have the script. Sometimes you have a minute. And I'll run through with my pencil very quickly and just circle everything that says talk over, because that's disconcerting when you're talking, when other people are talking. So to remind me, look, it's a talk over, keep going. Or if it says 3-second pause, I circle that. I circle anything that is unusual that I have to pay attention to. Or even brisk, that's an interesting one. Sometimes there's just a certain short amount of time to get the description in, and our script will say brisk. And then you've got to still make it make sense, but pick up your speed in a way that they can still understand what you're saying. And it has to fit exactly within that 1 or 2 second, space of time. I circle all of those so that I don't forget as I'm going through, because you're going through sight reading the whole time. So sometimes when you're sight reading, you're just going fast and you can miss things. So I circle anything that's out of the ordinary. Gotcha.
And sight reading, as you said, is just reading it, having not seen it before. That's what sight reading is.
Ice cold. You read, they record, which is kind of the bread and butter for a lot of voiceover actors, not just with this kind of a job. I think with other jobs. One of the things I listen to myself is I listen to the New York Times every day. And that guy is sight reading. He has not studied the New York Times. He is just the papers in front of him and he goes. And if he makes a mistake, he has to go back and correct it. But basically, he's just going all the way through. And it's like that with audio description as well. The goal, and I've accomplished this on occasions, especially with shows I know well, the goal is to be able to go through without any errors. Everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. It makes it easier for the engineer or the technician to do the post. In the post work that they do, it's to make sure that everything fits exactly right. Maybe they scoot it up here or back there, or they do this or that. You want to make it, time is money, and you want to do a performance where it's really close to what the finished product will be, and the engineer doesn't have to spend a lot of time fixing things.
Mm-hmm. So as an audio description narrator, are you involved at all in the writing of the audio description scripts?
No, I am the actor who comes in and interprets the script. For the most part, there are people that do this. They do this all day long. They describe TV shows and movies. Mm-hmm. But what I do is, as I'm reading it, every once in a while, there might be a little correction. Sometimes I can just read through, like say, she walks to the store, and the script will say she walked to the store. You can fix that as you're reading. It's just a typo. Mm-hmm. But there are other times where the description doesn't quite match the video for whatever reason, maybe they were sent an earlier version of the video that is not quite accurate, and then it was changed later. And that's where we stop, and I say, it looks like she's doing this, and the description says that. Sometimes I don't stop and we fix it later.
Mm-hmm. But somebody's catching it, whether it's you or the people involved.
Yeah, one of us has got to catch it. Yeah. And nowadays that we're doing it really remote, this happens. There's a show that I do weekly, at least until the season is over, where at the beginning of the show, there is for the credits, the wardrobe in the credits changes from week to week. Sometimes the script does the, what would I call it? The routine, the regular credit. Usually the family is dressed like this. Mm-hmm. Now, if I'm looking at it and reading and doing the performance, and that's not how they're dressed, sometimes I'll stop. Well, nowadays, because it's remote, I'll just make a note of it. And when I finish the whole recording, at the end of the recording, I will do alternates because I think it just saves time. It's different than when I was in the studio and I could just stop and say, hey guys, let's fix that. Now it's remote. I'm in, my closet in my home studio. And so when I get to the end, I look at my notes, I do a bunch of alternates that I think they might be able to use if they want. It's not, it's not my problem. It's only if needed. And then I press on. And then that saves us all time. Maybe there aren't any pickups now because they've already got the alternates at the end of the take. So I hope that's not too technical for our listeners.
Oh, it's exciting. There's going to be some people that really start to get excited about that kind of stuff. So I'm really glad to hear you expand so clearly on that. Going back to the writing of the script, I know some scripts give, for example, in between lines of dialogue, sometimes it's not wall-to-wall narration. In other words, it's not you constantly talking in between the lines of dialogue. Do you feel like that's a deliberate choice to give some space for the scene to breathe a little bit, or would you take a guess as to why that's happening?
I think it's all about telling the story. I think the best descriptive narration makes the story more clear, not less. And that there are times when you don't need narration. When there's dialogue, you don't necessarily need narration. When there are very clear sound effects, you don't necessarily need narration. You need narration, for example, you hear a door open, step, step, step. Mm-hmm. And I would say Mary comes into the room with a worried look on her face. That's something you would not be able to understand that without the description. Once Mary starts talking, you don't need me. Take it away, Mary.
Sure. It's not like you're saying Mary said after every time Mary talks.
Exactly. It's all in support to the storytelling.
Gotcha. Well, and if we could go back even to a previous comment that you said, that in the way that your experience crafting your performance, your talent as a theatrical actor, that has informed your audio description narration. I'm curious if the other way is true. Has your 15 years of audio description narration influenced your acting at all?
That's very interesting. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if it's the descriptive narration, because my ability to use my instrument as an actor has grown and evolved. The older I get, I think the more skilled I get at it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because I was doing descriptive narration or because I'm just living more life and I've experienced more things and I've had, life's ups and, joys and tragedies and all those things that go into making us better actors. So I'm not sure about that one. I would say that everything that happens to us contributes to our growth as people and as performers. So in that sense, yes, descriptive narration has contributed to me as a performer and me as a person.
What a great answer. Thanks for sharing that. Do you feel like there's something that you'd like to see with audio description, or even with audio description narration specifically, in the future? Where would you like to see it go?
I would like to see, and I'm sorry if this sounds self-serving, but it also is serving others. I would like to see more and more work being described. I think that a very small percentage of video, whether it's television, streaming, movies, it's not really universal, and I think that I would like to see it become more universal so that a sight impaired person has the ability to, listen to, experience everything that everybody else is experiencing in the same way that closed captioning is pretty universal these days.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. Thanks. And that's, like you said, it is both self-serving and serving our blind and low vision community. That this is a win-win for everybody, and even the studios. That it seems like they're recognizing the value of what are nearly 30 million blind and low vision Americans. That's really a win-win for everybody. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience about audio description or audio description narration?
I would like to share how much I love this job. I just love it. I love the experience of doing it. I love that it goes out into the community and that people are able to enjoy it, much in the way, say, you're doing a play on stage and you're doing this theatrical piece and you know that people are going to enjoy this, whether it's a comedy or a tragedy, it doesn't matter. People are going to feel something when they see your work. I feel that way about audio description, that I love doing it and I love the experience of sending it out there and people are going to receive this. As well as on a more personal note, when my children are both in college, but when I was having babies, and because my husband had a very high-powered job, he worked 18 hours a day, I really was a single parent raising these kids. And it was very difficult to not be able to do a lot of the work that I was trained to do and that I enjoyed doing. And audio description came into my life when I had young children, and I was able to put my toe, as it were, back into the world of acting and get that sort of creative release and the experience of doing what you do, what you know how to do. It's really important. And if I can speak for young moms out there, being a mom is an amazing job, but you also often have a certain amount of training for something that you have studied and know how to do. And you sometimes have to put that on a back burner when you're raising your children. And voiceover allowed me to raise my kids because my employer always knew I was free from 9 to 3. I drop my kids off at school. You can have me from 9 to 3. Then I got to pick up my kids from school. And I got through my children's childhood and still had this real creative release and this feeling of, I don't know, to coin a phrase, well-being, self-worth, whatever it is that makes you feel great when you're doing a job that you know how to do and that you feel you're doing it well. That's really important, and I would wish that for everyone.
Oh, that's great. Oh, thanks for sharing that. And you do audio description narration so well.
You're very kind. Thank you.
It's not just me. It's it's hundreds of people that thousands are very happy to be able to join you on those emotional rides of the stories that you share visually when they're watching one of these TV shows or the movies that you narrate.
Thank you.
For people to reach you, my guess is maybe one of the easiest ways is there's a Facebook group that's called the Audio Description Discussion Group, and it's a really lively conversation about audio description on all different levels. I'm wondering if you'd be comfortable if people could share maybe if they've heard this podcast, what maybe they could share some things to you that we could then pass on to you. Would you be comfortable with something like that?
I would love that. It's as I told you, I've only gotten feedback from two people. one through a remote email and one person that I spoke to personally. So it's kind of exciting after all these years to get that kind of feedback. Is like, yeah, there are people out there, they're listening, you know?
Oh, very good. Well, let's do that then. So on the Facebook group, if you're on Facebook and you're listening, the audio description discussion group is run by Kevin, and you can share comments about Leilani there. And if you want to use Twitter, the audio description narrators of America hashtag is ADNA the. It's kind of reversed. Instead of the ADNA, it's ADNA the. And if you send a message to Leilani on that Twitter feed, we'll make sure that we pass it along to you, Leilani, and vice versa. If you'd like to share any response to those messages, we'll be sure to post it for you. So,
oh, that's fantastic! Thank you.
Oh, our pleasure, and thanks so much for joining us on this interview. It's so great to hear your voice and to know more about your background and what you bring to the table. And boy, your passion really shows through.
Thank you so much.